Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode. I have a very special guest. Her name is Monique Halm, and she's going to be talking about topics I know a lot of you are interested in. First of all, how she transitioned from residential investing into commercial and industrial, number one. Number two, she's also a coach of women that want to be in real estate. And she wants to talk a little more how to invest as a woman using kind of your feminine power to really get into the business from a different point of view and perspective. So welcome, Monique.
Thanks for having me, Laura.
Great. So I'm really excited. We have talked for a few years here, and I know we have very parallel paths on what we do, although we attract somehow a different audience. So tell me a little bit about your life before real estate. Was there anything in the background that especially got you interested in real estate, and why?
There really wasn't. Growing up, my parents were very supportive, always told me, Monique, you can be anything you want. In parentheses, as long as you're a doctor, lawyer, professor, or engineer. That for them was success. And I was a dutiful daughter, a good student. Of my choices, I chose law. So I went to university, I went to an Ivy League law school, ended up in a big law firm, totally miserable, but that's a whole other topic. It's a whole other conversation. The only thing I'd ever been taught about real estate investing or real estate was that at some point you buy your own house, right? So you get a job, you buy a house, you put money in a 401k, you work until you're 65, 70, you retire, get a gold watch, play golf for a few years, and you die. Like that was the path. So I went, okay, well, I have the job and I guess it's time to buy that house now. So I live in Los Angeles, which is a very expensive market. And I was looking to buy a house back in 2005. It was towards the top of that last bubble. And even back then, a starter home in a semi-decent neighborhood was upwards of $500,000, $600,000. And I was making low six figures, but it was hard for me to afford that by myself. A friend of mine who's in a similar boat suggested we buy a duplex together. He would live on one side, I'd live on the other side, and we could each afford half a house. So I was like, okay, let's do that. But instead of finding a property with two equal sides, we ended up falling in love with this old craftsman that had a larger downstairs, that had this smaller 2-bedroom upstairs, that had a back house that could be rented out. So we each ended up taking a bedroom in the bigger unit and then renting out the upstairs and renting out the back house. And I became a landlord by accident. And I was house hacking before I knew that was a thing. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. These people are paying my mortgage, I have tax benefits. I still didn't really think of it as a way to replace my job, even though I was miserable at my job. Real estate investing didn't really occur to me. It was just a way to get a house. But when I met my husband, he had a duplex with a renter, and we got a single family rental together. And then 2008 happened. Actually, before the crash, I was pregnant with my daughter. I was working in a small law firm at the time, and my boss called me into his office. I thought I was going to get a bonus because I've been working so hard. Instead, I got fired. And I was 5.5 months pregnant. Like my belly had just popped out and I looked pregnant. And I thought, I'm not going to get a job. So I'll just wait until after I give birth, have a short maternity period. Then I'll go back and find another job as a lawyer. And then my daughter was born late August of 2008. Within a month, the markets were free falling. It was a terrible time. The economy crashed. Nobody was hiring. It was a horrible time to look for a job. And I had the fortune to be fired at that time, because otherwise I probably would have gone back to law, been miserable. But I had been the main breadwinner, I probably wouldn't have left it. But because things lined up the way it did, we ended up falling back on our real estate. So we sold one of the duplexes. We ended up flipping houses when houses were on sale. And we did that until they weren't quite so on sale. It was a lot harder. And I was trying to do a multi-family. And then we wanted to do buy and hold. Very hard to do in LA. I didn't realize yet that you didn't have to invest where you live. It took me a while to understand that. And live where you want to live, invest where the numbers make sense. I learned that from a mentor. And then I learned about bringing groups of investors together to purchase larger properties. So we started to syndicate, and that was in 2016. And we got into, we're saying, how do you transition from like smaller? So we went from those like small houses, the flipping to, actually we went from 2 doors at the beginning of 2016 to over 1,000 doors at the end of that year, just through syndication, bringing groups of investors together. So we passively invested in a couple of deals. We syndicated 3 deals that first year, and that's what we've been doing ever since.
Great. So it's a very similar story. I hear a lot with people that go into syndication, right? It's, you start like anyone else. A lot of us start just by chance. When I went into real estate, I just went in there to pay for college. I didn't know that was going to be my lifetime career. I said, oh, let me get this side gig. And then we kind of stumbled into it, and then you kind of catch the bug with real estate. I heard a funny quote a couple of weeks ago. It says, real estate investing is like a mafia. When you get in, you never come out. And that's true, right? Being Italian, I resonate with that. But that is true. And the thing is, syndication is, like you said, overnight you went from having a few units to have 1,000. It's because that's what happens with syndication. I started syndication in 2001, and I tell people, and people always open their eyes, it's like by the end of 2002, we're mainly using syndication for rehabs and new construction and developments. So by the end of 2002, we had over 20 fix and flips going at any one time. Wow. But that's what syndication does, right? It gets you into a totally different level of investing. So then you transition from residential, right, to doing syndication and getting into larger apartment buildings. And then eventually you mentioned also industrial. So how did that, okay, so you went, syndication is what allowed you, I assume, to get into, more commercial type investment, like a larger apartment buildings. Is that correct?
Yeah. So when, we were from like a small multifamily residential. And then the first apartments we got a 51 unit townhome community, and then a 77 unit apartment in Albuquerque, New Mexico. They were right next to each other, or, less than a mile away from each other. So we were managing them together. And so we got 128 units to start. We also did a mobile home park. That was our first investment where we raised money. Somebody else was running that deal. And then we went from there in terms of the apartments. What happened in terms of transitioning from the apartment buildings to industrial? So I got these apartment buildings in Albuquerque the beginning of 2016. I think we got them in May of 2016. And we were selling them at the end of 2018. So we were good. We were able to go full cycle. So pretty quickly. They were not easy buildings. So I won't lie. They were not in, well, like one in particular was not in the greatest neighborhood. It looked like it was coming around and transitioning, but the culture was really tough. So in that particular building, we had drive-by shootings. We had a gun pulled on our property manager. We had 2 fires. We had this one, the day after Valentine's Day, our property managers called us to tell us that one of the units had been broken into, a vacant unit, and they'd found rose petals and hypodermic needles.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah,
that's a weird way to celebrate Valentine.
I know. So that's the type of building it was. It was not a great building. So every time I'd get a call from the property manager, I'd sort of like cringe, like, what is it this time?
What's
So,
next?
yeah, I mean, we did fix it up, and there was, we'd go and visit, and the tenants would go, wow, it's so appreciative all the changes you made. I had my mom move in, now my kids, I feel comfortable having my kids outside playing. And so there we were able to improve it. That was good, but it was not a great building and not a great area. So I'm saying all this to give some context. So we bought it and then we sold it at a 4 cap. And this is so for those who understand cap rates, they're not paying. It's a very good price for a property that's not a great property in Albuquerque, New Mexico, not a top tier market. So I was really happy as a seller for that, but it terrified me as a buyer. I went, I don't want to compete against people that are willing to pay that much for that type of asset. That doesn't make, I was like, no, it's too much of a seller's market. And I don't like being a buyer in a seller's market. Where else can I look? What else can I do that's not quite so crazy? And that's not to say that we didn't do other real estate apartment deals. We did. We've done maybe five since, but we're much fewer. And the numbers really have to make sense. But I was approached by somebody who had an industrial project, and they to partner with them and raise money. And I went, industrial, I don't know much about industrial. Let me look into it. And so as the more I looked into it, I thought, okay, I like this asset class because there's an increasing demand for this type of property, even as retail is hurting and office can be hurting because things are going more online. Online retailers need industrial space. They need warehouses. They need distribution centers. They need, this is like R&D. There is manufacturing. There's food distribution and storage. There's a lot of that industrials. Anywhere industry happens, there is industry, and that type of. I was seeing that there was an increasing demand, but there was not the feeding frenzy for that product that there was I was seeing on the residential side. So I liked that. So we went into an industrial, and I guess we acquired our first property at the beginning of 2019. And since, I think now we're on our 10th deal. And so we're doing in the middle of doing a fund and getting a bunch of them. So yeah, and that's it's really great. It's also really great because they have something called triple net leases. So for those I know you said a lot of beginners that are listening to this that are new to real estate, and I want to explain what a triple net lease is. So a triple net lease, is the tenant. You'll see triple net in the commercial side on retail, office, industrial. Those tenants will pay triple net leases. And that means they pay rent to you, plus they pay all the property taxes, all the insurance, all the maintenance. So if there's an issue with the toilets, they fix the toilets. There's an issue with the roof, they will fix the roof. All of those surprise expenses, those are borne by the tenant, and which is really a wonderful thing when you're the landlord. So.
Yeah, you wish we could do that in residential.
Wouldn't that be nice? You'd be like, oh, you fix your own toilet.
Right? So,
Yeah.
okay, so tell us a little bit how, because it seems like syndication is what opened up the door for you, right? So tell us a little bit, kind of the steps. If somebody wants to say, okay, they're doing their own thing, they're doing their fix and flip, they're doing their buy and hold and wholesaling, and now they're looking into really bringing up the business to another level. So how did you step into syndication? How did you present that to get people on board to invest with you so that you could open up to bigger and better deals?
Yeah. So there are always two things you need, right? You need the deal and you need the money. So and to get to so a lot of people who, before they get into it, are like, okay, the money is going to be the hard part. So how do I get access to the money to other investors that want to invest with me? And there are a couple of things. So one is to go out there and start meeting people and speaking to them one-on-one, and just starting to put together a list of investors, people that would want to have their money working for them, you and their money working for them. They don't have to work for it, and their money can come back with friends. And that's a great way to do it. And I recommend that you go to places where there are investors, where real estate investor associations and groups like that, where you can meet people. It's always easier to get investors that already understand real estate investing. They already understand the benefits of that. They understand the benefits of passive investing already. So you don't have to sell them on that. And it's just for them, the decision is, do we like you as you and your team as sponsors, and do we like this particular deal? So it's an easier to get people that are already in, that already understand all of that to invest. So I would start there. Otherwise you have to, you're like, oh, but I have all these friends that have money. It's like, yes, but unless they're convinced about real estate, they have all those hurdles to go through.
Right.
And it can be tougher. So going to groups of investors is your easiest bet generally. After that, or you can create your own brand and attract people to you. Which is, in certain ways, that's what I did with my podcast. My Real Estate Investor Goddesses podcast and community. So people, and then by putting free content out there through my blogs or YouTube, so people come find me and then come to me and get on my list that way. So that's more often how I do it, and how people find me. They'll hear me. It might be on a podcast, or I'm a guest like this, and they'll find me that way. And so if you're looking to do that, the easiest way is to build a brand where people get attracted to you. Or if you're wanting to do smaller things, then you just meet people and you find out what they need. And it's definitely easier to start with the people than it is to start with the deal and then find people with the deal. Because once you have the deal in hand, time is of the essence, and you don't want to go and be needy and not be able to close because you're not able to get the people that you need. So you want to start with having the people and find things that are matched to them. It's easier to find a match to people, deals that match people, than it is to find people to match your deals.
Right. Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
And I want to get into a little bit is being a woman in a male-dominated world like real estate, right? For so many years, it's been male-dominated. And now I see more and more women that are really advancing into this business. So tell us a little bit about, how do you see women really, how can they use their power and their personality and their aptitude to really excel in real estate? And I know you really feel strong about that. So tell us a little bit.
I do. So one of the things I love teaching the women in my community is how can we do this as women? Because we're not just smaller, less hairy men. Our chromosomally we're different. The way our brains are connected is different. And those differences affect how we show up to money, how we show up to investing, how we learn, how we deal with stress. All of those things are different as women. So one of the things I teach is the goddess secret sauce. So those pretty much 4 pieces that will help a woman invite in more ease and grace and flow in her investing and in her life. So the first part is pleasure, because we're often taught through the masculine paradigm, like no pain, no gain, you got to man up, muscle through, and there's like a struggle aspect. And if you're struggling, then and it's painful, then you're doing it right. And that's not at all the path for women. So we're not meant to muscle through, we're meant to pleasure through. And it's a pleasure path that actually opens us up for more. So part of the secret sauce is learning how to tap into pleasure, to get your daily dose of pleasure, to make things that you're doing more pleasurable, and to let things that are very unpleasurable go, and let others who find pleasure in it do that, and just find, like, really tapping into what feels good to guide you. The next part is your intuition. Women's intuition is a very real thing. Everybody has intuitive capabilities, but as women, we have these connections in our left and right hemisphere that men don't have, that really do make us more intuitive. And that, so we'll sense things on a suprasensory level about people to trust or not trust, or ways to go. And we're often not taught to honor that intuition, but it is very important. And it's something that we really must hone into. So that's the second part. The third is our mindset. So for women, real estate investing as compared to men. So men see investing as a game, as a challenge. Women, we see it as a threat. So it can often will often trigger fear in us. And so it's really important to work on our mindset and our confidence, and so that we can move forward successfully. Tony Robbins says that success is 20% strategy, 80% psychology. At least, and I think it's at least 80%, probably more of our success is what happens between our ears. So getting that, really honing that psychology and the mindset, so that you can move forward confidently and not have beliefs that are holding us back. And lastly, it's sisterhood. So we are really biologically wired to do well in and among groups of other women. And we release oxytocin when we're breastfeeding or we're making love. And when we're around groups of women, our brain says, this is good for you. We learn better in sisterhood. Having a group of supportive women around is very good for our health and our confidence and our results. So all of those things together help women, I think, be more successful as investors and have more joy in life.
Right. I always say that, women, we have some innate attributes already that within us to make us successful in this business. But one of the things you said, and I agree, I notice fear. Women have more fear into this, and this just and that's something that you have to overcome, is fear of failure, but also fear of success. So women are fear, and especially if they are in an environment where they have a spouse or they have somebody else, and they say, I don't want to be more successful than my husband. I've heard that before. And I was like, okay, I can see that, right? We're trying to hold back. So just tell me a little bit then, with all your experience, jumping into, and, the last 5-6 years, you have exponentially grown into this business. Now, what would you say, looking back, what's the biggest mistake or roadblock, and what did you learn from it?
The biggest mistake has been it's been having the wrong people on the team, trusting the wrong people. So I had one deal. I'm still in the process of unraveling it, but where I have a partner that basically committed fraud and stealing money. So I trusted her, and we're talking about the intuition. There were certain red flags that I'd ignored along the way, and so I learned a lot of lessons from that. I could go on. So one of the big lessons that I've learned is fail. And a mentor taught me this long before, and I didn't apply it, but fail small. So do little tests with people before you do a bigger project. So this is, now this is a many multi-million-dollar problem where it could have been a much smaller problem. If I had, then I tested it small, and I went to do that, and I kind of got like, oh no, we'll keep, and it sort of snowballed and became a much bigger thing before. And I didn't really hold back and let my little test that I wanted to try go all the way through. So that was one thing so I would recommend little tests with people to see what works. And then the other thing I learned is that even with this, everything is figure outable. There's a book by Marie Forleo about that. It can be really stressful, but ultimately we're just talking about money. There are ways that things can be figured out. And if you get smart, you calm down the emotions around things, and you talk to smart people who've maybe gone through the issue before, then there are always ways to resolve and fix things. And if you can't get your money back fully, then at least learn some real good lessons.
Right. Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, being around the right people. I think with real estate, especially, there is so much money that circulates that it does also bring in a lot of people that are greedy or not honest, like you. I was with the wrong partner, and I let my judgment get in the way, giving her more chances than she deserved, and so that's something you need to definitely be careful. And I like what you said about testing small first, and just instead of even somebody that is in your immediate, influence, family or friend, especially because if this person doesn't work out, they might not have your same goals or alignment to what you want to do, and they can be more of a hindrance than actually help you to move forward. So that's definitely a big one. So for somebody new that wants to really get going with real estate and also, with syndication, what is the three best piece of advice you would give to somebody that wants to really get going with what you're doing?
That's a great question. So if you want to get started, I think the first thing that I would do is to get an education, is to start to educate yourself, because I find that the mistakes, you're going to pay for that education one way or the other.
Right.
It's definitely less painful and easier if you pay for it up front, and you find out, and then we also, you often don't know what you don't know. And there are a lot of myths out there. When I'm teaching, I always start with the myths, because there's, I think it's not just what you don't know that will hurt you. It's what you know for sure. Mark Twain says, no, it's what you know for sure that just ain't true. So getting that education is the first piece. The next step, I would say, is to get really marshal your resources and find out what you have available to you. So resources, when people think about that, they think about money, and that's a big one. But there's also figuring out how much time you have, what are relationships you can tap into, experience that you can tap into. So those are all resources that you will need as an investor. So you want to figure out what are the resources that I have that I can bring to this. And whatever you're missing, you can always partner with others that have what you lack, but you just need to know where you are. And so you figure out where you are, and then really get clarity on where you want to go. What's your end goal? Because there's so many different ways to play in real estate. There are a lot of different ways to do this game. So you kind of need to know where you're going, because if you have a goal of, okay, I want to retire from my job, I just want to create passive income streams, that's one path. If you want a goal that's, I need chunks of money, and that's my main goal, or I want a goal of having all these like tax benefits, that's my main thing, or I want to be able to leave a legacy, or I want to invest using my retirement accounts and just really long term. And it's nothing I need to touch for 20, 30 years, but I just want real long-term gain. So all of those might get you in different directions depending on what your end goal is. So getting really clear on where you want to go, and then what you have available to get you there, and then the education to help you bridge the gap.
Great. Okay, so now just to give a summary of then what are you working on presently? Because it seems like first of all, you're all over the country, because you mentioned Albuquerque, and then I know the other day we were talking about New York. And so, you find all these amazing opportunities all over the country. And like you said, you expanded the fact that virtual is the best way to go. And I know a lot of you are interested in investing virtually because, like you said, you go where the make better sense to put your money and make an investment. So what are you working on presently? And then how can the listener reach out to you if they want to learn more how to invest or what opportunities you offer?
Yeah. So I have a couple of projects. One is, I'm working on industrial fund. So putting together like a bunch of different industrial properties, help diversify and, mitigate risk. So that's one thing. And I'm also, with a fun project, I'm working on a vineyard development.
Oh, I might be interested in that one.
All right, let's talk.
Yeah. Where is the vineyard at?
It's in wine country, a little east of Sacramento.
Oh, okay. Yes. Drink wine.
The common will, check it out and drink wine. And
yeah, I'm definitely interested. I love wine. Some Italians, of course. So,
yeah.
Okay. So different opportunities. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And so how can people reach out to you?
Yeah, the best way is to go to my website is reigoddesses.com. And we have an investor club there that you can click on that in the menu and join us there for free. And there you can find out about all of our investing opportunities. And if you fill out the form, then you'll get on a call and we'll talk.
Great. Well, this was definitely very informative, I'm sure, for a lot of people, because then now they can see how you can transition. You start with residential wholesaling, whatever you do. But like I always say, real estate is like being in a candy store, right? There is so many opportunities out there. And like you said, you have to find what really appeals to you, what is a pleasure to you, what really inspires you at the end of the day, and make it fun. Don't make it something like a burden or a chore, because otherwise you can just go get, another 9-to-5 job or something else that, there's so many out there. So great. Well, thanks for spending the time with us today. I think this was very enlightening, and I encourage anybody to check out your website. And I know you're also coming up with a book. You already had a book, and now you're going to come up with another one here in a couple of weeks. So very excited about that. And
that's like a goddess featuring Ms. Laura Alamari.
I know, and I'm going to feature you in my book because you have been an inspiration. We met a few years ago in LA, and I've been following you as well. So we're kind of parallel but different. So I love to see the way you're going. Great. Well, thanks for taking the time, and look forward to talking to you soon again.
Thanks, Laura.
Thanks.